You're listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please subscribe to us and leave some feedback for us from wherever you get your podcasts. We really do appreciate it. This is episode 69, a sort of two-parter where we first talk about striking a balance between having your firearms securely locked up but also having them ready to access if need be. We also go over some current events that have been going on, but keep in mind that this podcast was recorded before the tragic events of this past weekend, and I think we're going to do a special episode about that next week. But for now, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy episode 69 of Range Minded, the balancing of security and accessibility. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. My name is Mark Long and I am joined by...
Tiny Dancer. Oh, wait, no. Steve Zimmerman. It's me again.
Tiny Dancer is what you go by on the weekends.
What? Why do you keep forgetting my name every time we do a podcast?
I don't know. Maybe because you don't write your name on the software we use, and it confuses me because I'm easily confused.
Yeah, maybe. I do that deliberately. I like to keep things fresh.
Yeah, variety's the spice of life, right?
Yeah, something, I guess. That or Chipotle. I'm not quite sure.
Well, you could get it something different at Chipotle every time.
I don't know. I was going to say I don't know if I've eaten at Chipotle, but I think I have once. And I didn't get food without food poisoning.
You got food poisoning at Chipotle?
No, I didn't get food poisoning at Chipotle.
Oh, good. Yeah, my fiance is obsessed with Chipotle, so we're there quite often.
Yeah, don't you remember that whole thing where people were like getting super sick?
Oh, the romaine lettuce or whatever?
I don't know. I didn't really.
Yeah, that's not
attention.
a problem anymore. Everything's fine now.
Good.
So
they all died or what?
Yeah, so there's no more complaining anymore.
Oh, well, see, that's how it works.
Yeah, exactly. So they actually they don't mind you carrying in Chipotle either.
Really?
Well, at least concealed.
Well, nobody's going to say anything concealed.
Well, they don't have a sign like some other restaurants do around here.
Well, some restaurants that even have signs, maybe I can't read properly when I walk in.
Concealed means concealed.
That's right.
Well, that's not what we're talking about.
They won't know till I start breakdancing.
Till I start breakdancing. I'd love to see that happening.
Oh, man, back in the day I could. Not anymore.
Oh, I believe it. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about, it's kind of going to be a two-part episode. We're going to get to current events because there's some interesting things going on over the summer. Seems like not much happens over the summer.
Happening.
Yeah, seems like not much usually happens gun-wise over the summer, but there's a couple things. And it's been a while since we've done one.
And there's not really like any new guns that come out during the summertime. I mean, there are some things that do come out, I guess, but it's not like January, like SHOT Show time or all the cool stuff comes out. So.
Right. It's just like the beginning of the year is usually when most of the cool stuff comes out or whatever. But
yeah, but starting quarter 3.
Yeah. Yeah. The end of the year.
Actually, we're almost starting quarter 4.
Yeah. We're almost at
Holy
Q4.
Cow.
We're halfway through Q3 just about.
Man, where have I been?
Out.
That's for sure.
But yeah, we're going to talk about safe storage and staging your firearms in your house if need be, and different storage options and what you should maybe and shouldn't do, and the considerations that you have for your house and storing those firearms. So, which actually does kind of play into concealed carry a little bit because, let's say you come home from a long day of carrying or whatever, and you want to, maybe not wear your gun for while you're at home. What do you do with it?
Right. I usually just throw it on the counter and let my kids, eat dinner around it.
Makes sense.
No, I do not.
It's like that person in Alaska. Did you hear about that?
Uh-oh, I didn't.
That was part of the reason I wanted to do this episode. There was, I believe, a 14-year-old or maybe even younger. Maybe it was 4. I couldn't remember. But a young child was found a gun on the kitchen counter, and it was loaded and was handling it and injured themselves. Maybe killed themselves. I couldn't remember, but
that's awful.
Had a bad day and had a tragedy one way or another. So,
yeah, that's terrible.
And it's important. I mean, if, I don't have kids, but you have kids. And so you have to consider your house and your household and who's coming in and out and, what you have to do to secure your firearms when you're not using them, and balance that between having them easily accessible, but also secured.
That's a big deal. And I don't know, and I think most gun owners get it, but I think there is still a segment that just get really lazy about it, or they don't think about that part of the responsibility of being a gun owner.
When I first started becoming a gun owner, I didn't necessarily think about a safe or anything like that. I lived in an apartment that was had a secure entrance and then a lock on my door. I thought, okay, well, nobody's really going to bust in here or whatever. But then you start thinking about it, like, what if something did happen or somebody made it past the secure entrance and decided to pick my apartment or whatever? Like, I'd feel terrible if that gun got out and heaven forbid was used in a crime or something like that. So eventually, I ended up buying a security locker and then afterwards a safe. So.
I was going to say, in the current climate, the gun grabbers or the anti-gunners, whatever you want to call them, they're getting to the point where they're wanting to prosecute the original gun owner if it's used in a crime, whether your kid took it to do whatever, or your gun was stolen. You legally purchased a gun and it was stolen and used in a crime. There's a lot of politicians that want to hold you legally responsible,
right,
for that, which is bizarre and ridiculous because it's not the gun that's the problem, right? It's we singing to the choir here, but it's terrible. And what they're trying to do, obviously, is scare you from buying a gun.
Sure. And I mean, I guess I can understand the point where it's that you should think about, or you should be a responsible gun owner and you should have a strategy or a way to store your firearms securely so that unauthorized people can't have them. But the reality is, and I think we've talked about it before, is that no security is perfect. And, eventually, with enough time and with enough, gumption, somebody can take whatever they want from your house, whether it's guns or valuables or whatever.
Absolutely. It happens all the time.
Yeah. And
I mean, history proves that always.
And so, but you have to do the best that you can to be able to, mitigate those risks and to prevent, as much as you can, any unauthorized people from getting to your firearms. So, even just a lockbox or a safe or anything in between, you really have to think about what your situation is and what it allows. Obviously, I think the thing that comes into mind first and foremost is kids. If you have kids in your home,
yes,
that's what you need.
Or grandkids.
Yeah, kids or grandkids.
Because I think that gets overlooked too. Oh, I don't have.
You think so?
I'm an old guy now. Yeah, I think so. They figure, I don't have kids to worry about. My grandkids, they're hardly ever here.
But like you said, kids are smart. They're going to find stuff that they're not supposed to find or go places they're not going to go because they're curious.
Yeah. I mean, I was the man at getting into things when I was a little kid.
Oh, really?
So, oh, man. I was precocious.
All the places you shouldn't have been?
I could get into, whatever my dad had locked up, whether it was like a piggy bank or something. I could get into it.
That doesn't surprise me in the least, actually.
Yeah, I was a thief as a child,
But that's how tragedies do happen. I mean, if you, let's say you leave it up, maybe you have a gun on the top of the closet or behind the bed or something like that, they're going to find it or they're going to find a way to get up there. And even if I think you can teach your kids, as well as you can about firearms and not to touch them and all that kind of stuff. But it's better not to just leave it open and say, or leave it out in the open and say, well, don't touch that. It's, why would you take that risk,
Well, I can teach my kids, but I can't teach my kids' friends either.
There's also that.
That's the other thing you really got to consider. I know for a fact that my son's friends know I'm a gun guy. I mean, it's probably pretty obvious to anybody that's any of my kids' friends, but that's another thing is, my son is responsible. Like I trust him.
Sure.
But I don't know about his friends. I can know who they are and know their parents or whatever. But it could be something that seems fairly benign, like, hey, check out this new gun my dad bought or something. And it could be bad.
Yeah, it could end up bad.
So it's not just your children. You might think, yeah, I've taught my kids. They know not to touch my guns. We go shooting. They're responsible. Great. But what about their homies that come in that, your son wants to show off your new toy? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, sure.
It's super dangerous, and it's very irresponsible.
Well, and the same thing you could even say if you have people over to your house and maybe you trust your friends, but maybe your friend brings a friend over or something and they note, maybe they're not so savory and they notice that you have guns or, they've been drinking a lot or whatever and they want to see one, you know what I mean? Just there's a lot of gray area there and a lot of risks that you don't need to take.
There is a lot of what if to it, and a lot of those what ifs can be mitigated, but the X factor of you don't know what a person is going to do or how desperate that person might be at any time, family member or not. It's just not worth the risk.
Right. And that's I think part of anybody's kind of gun storage, safe storage and security plan is secrecy, for lack of a better term. You don't necessarily have to be like a closet gun guy and never talk to anybody about it, or gun gal for that matter.
I think it should be the exact opposite personally. I think you should be very vocal about maybe not necessarily the guns that you own, but your positive attitude towards the Second Amendment. That's just the way I feel. Your close friends are going to know you're a gun person. I mean, they're going to know. Because if anybody's like me, they're going to talk about it.
Yeah, and you'll be able to make friends that way, but that's with people you trust.
That's true.
I guess what I'm going to say is, what I want to say is, I'm not going to broadcast the fact that I own guns to people that on social media or people that I just met. I think I've got a couple of pictures of shooting on my social media accounts, but I mean, not a ton. I'd rather just not. Like I said, I don't want people to think that I'm like not a supporter of the Second Amendment and all that, obviously being on a podcast.
But there's no use advertising a break-in.
Right. Especially like what if you have some really nice guns or heaven forbid some NFA stuff. Like let's say, if I had a couple silencers or, even a machine gun or something, that's kind of.
Yeah, that could be a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's like kind of like, I guess I equate it to the same way as talking about if you inherited some like jewels or like some sort of jewelry or like gold from the family and you kept it just kind of out in the open or maybe somewhere that wasn't that secure. And told a bunch of people, that's going to, that word might get around and that might get to the wrong person,
Well, let me give you an example, and it's not a firearm, but it is an heirloom.
Sure.
My brother, man, maybe I've told you this story before. I can't remember. So my brother was given something that my grandfather had that he worked a long time for. It was something that was very special to my grandfather, and my brother had an interest in the same thing. And so my grandfather gave this, or my grandma did maybe after he died, I can't remember, but gave it to my brother, right? And my brother cherished it. He was super proud of it. It was totally awesome. But through carelessness and maybe not choosing the best of friends, he came home one day and it was gone.
Wow.
And he doesn't know who it was. It was somebody obviously that knew how to get into his apartment. Yeah, it was gone. And we're talking something that was, I bet you it was in the realm of probably $5,000 to $10,000 worth of value.
Yeah, that's not only a lot of money, but the emotional or the sentimental value of that, item would just make you feel terrible, Yeah.
And my brother, he's super pissed about it. And this was years ago.
But he's still mad.
But, I'm sure he is. And I'm kind of frustrated too. But it's not necessarily his fault. And maybe I don't know. I'm not going to get into, whose fault it was. But nonetheless, was it secure? And that's the same thing you have to think about with your firearm, because it's financially valuable. It's valuable as far as, a life-saving device. It could be used to save you or your family or your neighbor or whatever. But it's also a huge responsibility because it can take a life.
Right. And you have to be the one to decide how fast, how accessible they are versus how safely they're stored, and the thing I was thinking about is that you can actually kind of mix and match. I brought up like the concealed carry thing. When you get home, if you don't have any kids, maybe you can put it on your counter or put it on your table or your nightstand or in your nightstand or something. But, there's so much technology and there's so many things out there now that you can get, to safely store firearms, but are also pretty quickly accessible. There's really no reason not to.
What's that biosecurity thing we have at the store?
Vault-Tec.
Vault-Tec. Those things are freaking cool. Yeah. They're not cheap. But you're paying for something that is freaking awesome as far as quick access and secure
Yeah,
storage.
Vault-Tec makes a whole bunch of different kinds of quick access boxes. Even like just a pistol storage kind of cabinet almost. It holds like, I think, 8 different pistols or something and sits on a desk or something like that. You can bolt it to different things.
Yeah, it can be bolted. You could put it in the trunk of your car or whatever. They're freaking cool. Yeah,
and they have biometrics. They have an electronic combo lock. You just press the buttons.
You can access it from your phone. Like, there's an app for your phone. I think there's even an accelerometer or something in there that if it gets stolen, it notifies your phone, say, hey, somebody's messing with your stuff.
Yeah, if it gets moved or shaken or something like that, I think it sends a note to your phone. There's another product out there called the Gun Box that is RFID and fingerprint, so it's biometric as well. And yeah, it's connected to the Wi-Fi. It actually has a battery backup in case the power's cut or whatever, and it'll tell you if there's an issue or if somebody moves it, or I think it even has a GPS locator in it. If heaven forbid something, it actually gets like taken out of your house.
And how cool is that? Now, like I said, it's not the cheapest thing, but it's definitely cheaper than an attorney.
Right. You're going to definitely pay, good money for some of this quick access stuff. But at the same time, it could save your life, and it could save somebody else's life by preventing them access.
Yeah. And
because, go ahead.
I was going to say, and there's other alternatives, obviously, maybe some that are less secure than a Vault-Tec. Like I have a Liberty Safe. I can get into it fairly quickly. But my wife, it's a dial. It's not a push button.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife struggles with it a little bit, but when I had it at the shop there in my office, I could get into it pretty quickly.
Oh, sure. And that's kind of another choice that you have to make too with locks. I mean, I remember in our safes episode, Old Man Rob talked about the different kinds of locks there are, and that there's biomechanical. There's biometric with like a fingerprint. There's RFID. There's mechanical and dial locks, push button locks, all different kinds of locks, and you have to think about what you would use the best.
Yeah, and I want one with a retinal scanner. Make me feel really.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
Make me feel super awesome.
Yeah, I can only imagine how expensive that would be.
Maybe one that pricks my finger and tests my blood.
Yeah, that's quick access right there. I like RFID. Seems pretty cool to me. Because it's kind of almost a wearable technology. Like you can get one of those,
like a watch or something with it,
or like a ring or a silicone bracelet. Remember those? Remember the Livestrong bracelets?
Yeah. You
can get those with RFID chips in it, and all you have to do is hold it up to, your quick access box or your safe or anything like that, and it pops right open. I mean, because I've read a lot about biometrics and where it won't. I mean, think about it with your phone. Maybe your phone doesn't read your fingerprint perfectly every time. Do you want to be fumbling around if something's happening trying to get that thing open?
And technology is, I think it's super interesting and fascinating, is it's come so far in not a huge amount of time. Like in the last 2 years, the RFID and the fingerprint stuff has come leaps and bounds. That
it's way better than what it was.
Yeah. So I think there's probably people maybe listening out there that are like, I've seen those stupid fingerprint safes. They never work. You have to use your finger like 16 times if it ever reads. So this new stuff, like those Vault-Tecs, I think you can store like 250 fingerprints. So you can do all 10 fingers, all 10 toes. Of you and your spouse and somebody else you want to have access to it. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's just like a smart lock nowadays on your front door, where you can set different people different accesses at certain times, or you can have somebody always have access, or turn people's access on and off. You can pretty much do whatever you want nowadays.
And the other thing I like, and I'm sure there's others other than Vault-Tec, right? But it's not just stuck to the electronic stuff. It comes with a key. So you're not, because there might be people that are like, well, what if Big Brother comes in and locks me out of my stuff? Well, there's a key. You're getting
Yeah, there is a redundancy there. I think on most of them there's a key, and I think the key is like the keyhole's in a hidden location, or there's other ways to do it, because you have to think about that too. But most of these have battery backups now too. If the power gets cut and there's, you're not worried about, and you're worried about the electricity, they have battery backups that last for, I think, 6 hours or something. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff out there. And yeah, who knows what'll in the next couple of years, what we'll see. But being able, I think, to be notified about things when you're not home as well, when you're not, near your firearms, is kind of gives you some peace of mind as well,
Right.
Another thing that you can, think about, I guess I talked about it briefly through secrecy, but not necessarily secrecy, but just clever hiding places. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those, like the tactical walls or anything like that.
I think those are cool. Like, I totally want to build some of that stuff, but it isn't secure. But it is out of sight, out of mind. I mean, most people aren't going to know that you have this cool sliding mirror that you can hide your long gun inside of. But I think it's cool.
I think it's cool too. I mean, I would want to do one in my house at some point. But it does make that balance between it, or you have to find that balance between security and accessibility. What do you want to have accessible, while you're at home? What do you not want to have accessible when you're not at home? You know what I mean? Like, because I think we've talked about it before, is that if something's happening, but your gun, any of your guns are in your safe and you can't access them, and there's somebody in your home, then it's no good.
Yeah. And I don't mind the idea of staging firearms.
So tell me why you're good with staging firearms.
So we talk about those shelves and the hidden walls and stuff, and I'm cool with staging firearms as long as my authorized people know where they're at in case I go down for some reason, and that they're secure enough or hidden enough that they're not obvious. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you have to keep them. There's some obscurity there that you have to keep in mind, because if you're home and somebody breaks in, or you have friends over or something like that, you don't want them just laying out on the table.
No. Unless you're trying to intimidate him for some reason, and that might be considered brandishing and possibly assault. So I wouldn't recommend it.
Even in your own house, yeah.
Silliness. I don't know, in all my years of doing carpentry, there's been a few houses that I was able to create some cool things.
I'm sure
that are effective. But the problem is now I know where they're putting them. So if I ever go to their house, I know where to go first.
Sure.
Not that I would ever do such a thing.
There's that trust factor, and you're a trustworthy guy.
Yeah, that's totally it.
Well, and you're not divulging their secrets right now,
No, and I would never. I'll respect who they are and what they have.
You can trust Steve.
I'm not that guy.
But, you want to also keep, your secrets a secret. If you, have a tactical wall or like a shelf or anything kind of hidden away for access, don't show everybody how cool it is. That's probably the tough part.
Check this out. This is so awesome.
Yeah, right.
Then it goes,
like, believe it or not. So when I did this as a project about 5-6 years ago, just kind of for fun, I saw it online and I'm like, I could do that. I took an old pop machine and actually turned it into a gun safe, because I'm like, well, it's pretty heavy. There's a hefty lock on it.
That's pretty cool.
And nobody's ever going to guess.
Until you showed it to everybody.
Whenever we had people over, I would show everybody, hey, check this out. This thing's pretty cool. And then look, it lights up on the inside when you open the door, just like a fridge.
Way to go.
But the funny part was that everybody's first question was, does it actually vend soda? I'm not that ingenious.
That would be sweet.
So, but I who knows? Maybe I'll do that again. I had to leave it in Illinois when I moved to Idaho. I wasn't exactly going to haul that thing over. That's
pretty cool, though. It's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's security through obscurity kind of thing. I'm a big proponent of that. But like I said, it also had a big lock on it, and it was heavy, and you couldn't, so you couldn't really break into it.
I think it'd be cool if it actually vented the guns out to you.
Oh, wouldn't that be great? Like a vending machine?
Yeah, like the soda machine at the store where it goes and grabs the soda out of the tray and
puts it on the conveyor belt.
That'd be freaking cool.
And loads the mags for you.
Oh, that'd even be better.
Right? That's like we're getting into robot territory, but you're pretty much only limited by your creativity as long as you are secure, I think. And you have to, know what your situation is at home. if there's kids or people coming over, or like even like a cleaning service or landscaping or anybody that, comes into your home, maybe they're the curious type.
I'm not sure why you'd have your landscaper come into your house, but
maybe they trim the indoor plants.
Maybe. But
or like a babysitter, and anybody that you kind of trust when you're not there. You have to make sure that those people don't have access or don't know that you have those things.
Yeah, and you're having to accept a level of risk, right? I mean, that's just part of the deal. And honestly, we accept risk every day when we wake up and drive to work.
Sure.
But, I don't know. Some of that, though, I could see it being a little bit of cost prohibitive. I mean, I don't know what a used vending machine costs, or what it took to convert it. I think it's a cool idea, but even those concealed walls and stuff, I look at the price that they're charging for some of those, and I'm like, that's so stupid. Yeah. Because I guess I know what I could build it for. Maybe that's why I think it's silly.
Well, and it's their intellectual property. And I mean, the tray or the actual like panel they have is pretty cool. I would pay for the panel maybe, but it doesn't cost that much to put a hole in the wall and then make a frame out of wood if you're the handy type. So, don't be afraid of maybe trying that stuff yourself.
I mean, there could be really cool stuff. You could make a little molly webbing you could put in there, and that could be. I'm getting some ideas,
Well, of course, if you're a homeowner, that's the other thing. If you rent your house, or you're in an apartment or a trailer or mobile home or anything like that, you're going to have a tougher time doing that stuff.
Yeah, they might not really look too kindly to it.
Yeah, and that's one thing to check too. I mean, if you're looking for a new apartment or something, you don't necessarily want to tell the landlord that you've got firearms, I would say, but ask if you can bolt a safe to the wall or to the floor, because talking about safes, going back to safes, you want to make sure that you have, you're bolting it to the wall or to the floor, or even with those quick access boxes, that you're bolting that to your bed or to your nightstand or anything, because what's to stop somebody from just picking it up and taking it away and figuring it out, how to open it later after they already have everything.
Well, that's why I kind of laugh when I see like those fire boxes for sale at Home Depot or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Those are so easy to get into. Like, I could go into my tool shed and I could have it open within, I don't know, as long as it takes me to roll out an extension cord, or even if I had a cordless skill saw.
Well, and get into it. You bring up a good point about that too, because maybe you have a bunch of tools in your garage, maybe either some fancy woodworking tools or sawzalls or something, or even drills. What's to stop somebody from going into your garage if those aren't secured and taking it to your safe, or maybe you have a crowbar, or maybe you have just a security cabinet, what's to say that somebody can't just rip that thing off the wall and can just drag it out, And
it seems like I remember hearing a story like that where somebody did that. I'm sure it's happened before.
I feel like somebody told me a story, and I don't know if it's true or not, or if I'm just making it up, but a group of thieves came to a house that they knew had a safe full of guns, and they like wrapped a chain around the safe and hooked it up to a truck and literally yanked the safe out of the garage. Like something completely like crazy, like Fast and the Furious or Ocean's 11 style stuff, something, you know what I mean? But
that's ridiculous.
Right, but it may have happened.
Yeah, Italian Job, Caldwell.
Italian Job, Caldwell. Love it. But you have to think about those things, and that's, layering your security together. So my kind of philosophy is that, use the safe for the guns you're not using right now. Stuff that, maybe you bring out to the range every once in a while, or that just maybe that are antiques or anything, that you don't use regularly, but, at least having a firearm that you maybe either conceal carry every day or carry one way or another, or that you use all the time, that would be one that you would want to have at a quicker access,
Yeah. Like if I have my house gun, whatever it is, handgun, AR, somewhere that I can get to it quick enough, but it stays secure enough. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember building an antique looking case for a double barrel, like a coach gun for this old boy. It's actually turned out pretty dang cool. And he bought, it was a new coach gun, but it looked like the old Wells Fargo.
Oh, cool.
Double barrel. It's a pretty cool gun, really.
Yeah.
But he keeps that, it's in glass in this box that I built him, but he can get to it quickly and it's right by the front door if he needs to. Would I necessarily do that? Probably not, because it looks like I'm just advertising.
Right.
Hey, free gun, break glass, take home type thing. But just in case, I mean, he's got it there.
Yeah. And and maybe, if he's retired, he's home most of the time, 98% of the time or something, except for maybe going to the grocery store.
All the time he's home.
Right. And that's a thing too. Maybe you work from home, you can have your guns out a little bit more, or it makes more sense to do that because you're around them more. But, maybe if you travel a lot or you've got, or you travel for work or you go on vacation, I don't know, you're not going to be as home often. You got to take those into consideration.
Well, even, that kind of makes me think of something else. I went to Zion's National Park a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to lock up stuff at home when I'm not there. Anything that I may or may not have staged around the house if I did or didn't do. But I also made sure I traveled with something that I had to make secure in my vehicle.
That was going to be the next point I was going to bring up. Was we've talked about the house and focused on the house for a while, but when you're out and about and you're in a car and, I just took a road trip to Salt Lake City and you took a road trip to Zion's Park and all that. What do you do in those situations?
Yeah. So, I'll tell you off air, but there's some really cool things that I've learned, because I don't really want to advertise free guns. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But there are ways you can secure your firearms. Like I had a good friend that would carry 2 ARs in his truck, but the way he would secure them is he would run a cable lock, like a bicycle lock, not like the cheap, stupid cable locks that come with the guns.
Right.
But a bicycle lock through, so he'd tear apart the gun, the AR, so leave the front pin in there. But then he would run the lock through the upper receiver and then down through the magwell of the AR. Yeah. And then hook it around the frame of the seat. So it would take quite a bit of effort for somebody to get that out of his truck. And
you have to know what you're doing.
Yeah. So, and I thought that was kind of an ingenious idea. Now, is it quick for him to get to? Not super quick, but it's there as a tool if you needed it.
Yeah, it's there. And I mean, if you're in your car, you might have a little bit more time depending on what the threat is, but that's a good way to, and maybe while you're driving, that's the thing is where maybe while you're driving, you want it accessible so you can, have the AR together and have it in the seat next to you or what have you. But if you're not in your car, you want to make sure those things are secure as possible. And one thing I noticed is I was, looking for vehicles to purchase that a lot of the newer cars have cubbies all over the place now that'll fit, a nice subcompact or a magazine or whatever that still works. You don't have to modify your car, but they'll still fit a firearm just right. And they're fairly accessible. Yeah, there are a lot of little nooks and crannies, especially if you have an SUV or a pickup truck or anything like that. There's a lot of places that you could probably store something that a lot of people wouldn't think to do. But one thing I would advise against is keeping a gun in your car all the time, even when you're not in it, because 90% of the time your car is parked outside somewhere or even in your garage. But let's say it's parked at work, and you leave a gun in the office, or you leave a gun in your car while you're in the office, or you have like a truck gun or something like that. And again, it's going to vary depending on your situation. Out in the country, it may be one thing, but in the city, think about how many people are passing by your car all the time, every day.
All the time.
And you don't think somebody's going to look in there
all the time.
Right. And it's so if you leave a gun in a car all the time, I don't think it's necessarily a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Well, look at the crackheads. They'll go and they'll break in your windows for a couple bucks in your ashtray.
Yeah. They won't think anything of it.
Yeah. And if they're desperate enough to take a couple bucks, man, if they can find anything else of value, and guns are valuable on the street, they'll do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, they don't care. And they'll tear your car up trying to look for stuff too, especially maybe if they've cased you or they know that you have a firearm or something like that. But having something as simple as a lockbox with a bicycle, a bicycle lock, a cable tie, wrapped around the seat or something, that's, better than nothing. Or putting it in the trunk. If you have a sedan or something, that's a good option too. There's even people who make things that you can have secure storage and install it into your vehicle. Now, granted, you're getting into some car mods and stuff like that, but
Black Rack, we carry Black Rack at the shop.
Yeah.
And they're freaking cool, but they're also not cheap.
Yep, they're not cheap, and they hold the gun out right there. It's not necessarily hidden away, I guess.
And it's not chintzy bull crap either. This is stuff that's been designed and used by the United States military.
Yeah, it's military grade. Police use it in duty cars. I mean, it's not stuff you mess around with, but it is permanent modification, and it's also expensive. Yes. So you just have to think about what your situation is.
It is pretty cool though.
Oh, of course it's cool. Otherwise, what's the whole point of having it if it's not cool?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, your car is kind of an extension of your home a little bit. And so you have to make sure you think about, or because maybe let's say you have to go to the post office, walk into the post office, but you're carrying that day. I mean, what are you going to do? Just put the gun on your passenger seat or what?
Well, and a long time ago, was it the Castle Doctrine we talked about?
Yeah.
Where your vehicle counts as your domain or domicile or whatever the determination, whatever the term. Yeah, whatever the term is I think it's, that's, you can defend yourself in your vehicle if you need to. And you better, if you are planning or preparing for anything like that, you need to have a good, safe place that's accessible in a hurry. Or don't do it.
Yeah, and that's part of just general gun ownership, I think, and concealed carrying is that if you're going to carry a gun or own a gun, you have to have a place that's as a responsible gun owner to store it safely, but also accessibly, and it all really is dependent on your own situation. Because we can't tell you exactly what to do, and we don't want to talk about what our secrets are, like you said, about how we store things, but that's something that you got to take seriously. So,
and the other thing is it's not like whatever you're planning for, prepping for, it's not my gunfight, it's your gunfight. So I can't really advise you on much because I don't know your total situation. I don't know, that is totally your gunfight. So you need to make those determinations. Did I say it right that time?
Yes.
And I'm struggling. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? You can get advice, you can watch videos or whatever, you can talk to, security experts, whatever. But ultimately, it's your job to keep you safe, not mine.
100%. And you have to and basically the big takeaway here is that you have to assess your own situation and look and see what works best for you and spend the time and spend the money to get it right, because the consequences are not good otherwise.
And good stuff isn't cheap.
No. But I think that you and I both agree, if you buy once and cry once, then you're done with it and you don't have to worry about it again.
Yep. Like I read today, I think it was, good stuff isn't cheap and cheap stuff isn't good.
Love it. That's true.
Grandpa wisdom,
Well, that's that's like, don't skimp on anything that you put between you and the floor.
Yeah.
There's some good life advice there.
Word.
So we'll pivot over to some current events. Hopefully we gave you some food for thought with staging guns and safe storage and all that.
And honestly, what do you guys think? Like, jump online, tell us what you think. And obviously, like I don't expect you to say where you guys keep stuff or whatever. That's not what I'm trying to get to. But what are your suggestions? Ginger beer, excuse me.
Yeah, buddy.
That's good stuff. What are your suggestions as far as, or opinions as far as staging guns in your home or quick access in case you need to, or traveling with a firearm in your car? What are your suggestions, or what would you not suggest?
Yeah, what's your strategy? What are your do's and don'ts? Let us know, on the Facebook. So, but no, I think you had some interesting drama coming from the NRA.
Yeah, so I think we talked about this or touched on it quite a while ago. If you guys haven't really been paying attention to the NRA stuff, maybe you don't even care. So Wayne LaPierre, who is the executive vice president, I think is what his official title is. He's been taking some heat, which he needs to be, spending a lot of the organization's money on personal trips and girlfriends and suits and we're talking frivolous wasting millions of dollars that NRA members are putting into an organization to save their gun rights. And it's like ridiculous the amount of money he spends.
Yeah, it's a lot of political BS, really. I mean, that you shouldn't.
Yeah. And it's
irritating because they ask for money all the time, and some people do give money to the NRA, and that money's going towards trips or whatever. It's not going to fight for your gun rights, and that's frustrating.
And it's to the point, like, even the board, will not vote to dismiss him. So I don't know what friends he has in his pockets, or what they're making, and members of the board make a lot of money too. Like, it used to be a complete volunteer office, but it's not anymore. They're getting paid now, and so now these people are protecting their own pocketbooks by not really fixing any problems, and it's super, super frustrating. And I was telling you off the air, even LaPierre's wife is making money off the organization through a separate firm or a business that she created.
Wow.
And so they're making a ton of money that for years I've been paying into. And now, to be fair, the NRA has done a lot for gun rights in the past, but it doesn't feel like they've done as much recently as they should be. And we can reference the bump stock ban and some of the other stuff that they're going through. And I'm sure you're going to see more stuff that they're going to cave on shortly as well. I think triggers are going to be next, binary triggers, but that's a different show.
That's a different story. But that's
nonetheless, there's a lot. And some of the board members, I was listening to another show the other day, that there are some of the board members that are like, this is stupid. And they've actually sent around a petition to the high dollar, multi-million dollar donor saying, hey, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
We suggest no more donations.
Wow.
And there's actually some, $10 million. I don't know the dollar amount, but it's in the millions. I know that some $1 million plus donors that are starting to hold off on donations to the organization until the house gets cleaned and fixed, because it needs it.
And a lot of the people in the power there have been in there for a long time. And like you said, if they're just looking after themselves rather than actually trying to, protect people's gun rights, then that's not what you're there for, and you got to go.
Yeah, and I can understand getting compensated for some of the stuff that they do, because it can't be easy. Like, even just dealing with the politics of the Second Amendment is stressful and frustrating. I totally get it, and I could see making $60,000 a year. Most of these people on the board are successful business owners. They make a bunch of money at their day job. I don't understand why they need to make a bunch of money on a volunteer job.
Maybe it's just a greed thing.
And it's sad because the only people that are really losing are the members of the NRA. And
the everyday people who are sending in part of their paychecks every year or every month or whatever.
Yeah. And it's probably going to get worse before it gets better, honestly. We'll keep you posted on the situation. It's sad that an organization that is actually the oldest civil rights organization in the United States has to deal with this. I hope the organization doesn't die. I think at the heart, the NRA does good things for gun owners, but they just need to fix a couple things.
I imagine most of it's in the leadership and the bureaucracy and just how maybe bloated and slow that's become.
And it's super sad, but what do you do?
Well, you can go turn to the GOA or local state-run, the Gun Owners of America or the Firearms Policy Coalition. I think there are some grassroots organizations that are really, I think, going to fill in that void that the NRA is kind of creating for itself.
Yeah, and it's dangerous for the organization. I mean, it really could put the organization in financial jeopardy as far as taxes and nonprofit status and stuff. Hopefully they can get it figured out.
Right. You just got to get the right people out.
Yes. And Wayne needs to go. Like, he needs gone. Whether he did anything nefarious or not, the image and the precedent has been set in the minds of the public. He's got to go.
Well, and that's, I don't know. I don't know if we've talked about it before, but sometimes perception is reality. And that's, where we've talked about being a good steward of the gun world and being a kind of a model gun owner. Even if you say the wrong thing to the wrong person or maybe post the wrong thing on social media or whatever, you could leave a bad taste in somebody's mouth and you've lost a potential ally,
Yeah.
And so relating back to the NRA, it's if the average public sees, all this kind of misconduct or, the not the most responsible use of funds, it's going to put a bad taste in people's mouth and turn a lot of people, gun owners, are not off of the NRA.
Yeah, it gives ammunition to the anti-gunners too.
Exactly.
And that's the problem.
Exactly. So we don't want that to happen.
Mm-mm.
So,
but join your local, your state groups or Gun Owners of America. Join those groups.
Yeah, look at the alternatives. I think the best thing, to put your tax dollars to is, or your own hard-earned dollars is towards local groups and state-run groups, because they're going to be able to navigate the waters a lot better in your own state and I think make more of a change that way, which, then in turn would, lead to more federal changes. At least I would imagine.
Yeah, and that's really how the Constitution is designed, is to try things on a state level and then introduce them on a federal level. So it's worth experimenting on the state side first.
Well, and I think that state legislators and state, politicians are a little more accessible than federal legislators or federal politicians. So you'd have an easier time trying to change the hearts and minds of those people than federal,
Well, they better be, because they were elected in by their constituents.
Exactly.
So they better be accessible.
So, but we'll switch gears from there to some more legal stuff. 3D printed guns have been banned in New York State. Did you hear about this?
I have not heard about that, but am I surprised?
No, not at all. The governor, Andrew Cuomo, signed this into law. I think
he's my favorite.
I bet you he is. I'm sure you'd love to meet him one day.
Mm-hmm.
So this one's from the NY Daily News, and this was from 2 days ago on July 30th. And making, selling, transporting, or possessing 3D printed guns or other undetectable firearms is now illegal in New York State. But the first sentence in the article: ghost guns are now a thing of the past.
Wow.
Which I don't think that there are, because there's all these things. There's such a thing as an 80% lower.
These gun people, anti-gun people, they blow my mind, and he is one of the worst offenders. It's just silliness.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand how they can willfully not understand how firearms works and just make laws based on what they don't know.
Well, and something that just blistered my blood the other day, and this was a Fox News report, and it wasn't necessarily on printed guns, but this was a Fox News reporter talking about the bump stock ban that that took into effect a while ago. That he said, and this is kind of close to what he said verbatim, was the bump stock ban, which made semi-automatics fully automatic.
I remember reading that, yeah.
And it pisses me off that Fox News, who is supposed to be conservative, is not conservative. It is and I'm over here screaming at my radio in my truck. That's not what they do.
Well, and it doesn't, conservative, liberal, doesn't matter what the news source is. They should be accurate. They should be factually accurate, and that is not factually accurate. That's the thing. So if you're reporting things that aren't even true or factually accurate, then you're doing, you're not telling the truth, basically.
And if Cuomo's worried about ghost guns, I mean, they don't exist. That there's no such thing. And I know it's a coin to say something that's untraceable. I understand that. But guess what? Keeping 3D printed guns off the street does not account for the millions of guns that come through illegally from the ports or out of state through the black market that are not traceable.
Right. And the other thing is, how many 3D printed guns have been used in crime?
Probably not many, if any at all, because they break not long after they're used.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the thing about 3D printed guns, at least from what I've read, is it's not necessarily to, make these guns that last forever. It's more of kind of just a point to prove that you can do this, and no matter what kind of laws you'll put in, you're not going to restrict people's rights to do what they want to do.
Well, and that's exactly why,
and to protect themselves.
That's exactly why. What's his name? I can't remember his name now. Created the Liberator. That first 3D
Cody Wilson
gun
from Defense Distributed.
That's the one. Was just that to stick the middle finger up and say, guess what? You cannot regulate firearms. You cannot get rid of firearms, not regulate. You cannot get rid of firearms because ingenuity takes place, and they're always going to be here. And it wasn't.
People find ways around it.
And it wasn't to be in a violent, anarchist manner. It was to say, we will not tolerate it, is what it was down to.
Right. And some people have argued too that sharing the information of 3D printing and plans for 3D printing is actually part of the First Amendment and part of free press. And, so it kind of muddies the waters a little bit in between and blurs the line between the First Amendment and the Second Amendment.
But we got to think about the children. They throw this they throw this emotional argument in there that makes it muddy. And they do that on purpose, just to put some kind of a compassion spin on it.
Yeah, as an emotional appeal.
But why aren't these same politicians going after cell phone companies for allowing kids to have the ability to text and drive, which kills millions of teenagers every year?
Or, why don't they go after poverty and work on alleviating the poverty in in poverty-stricken areas, or gang violence or anything like that, Yeah,
if they put as much effort and the same amount of money into those other things, a lot more would change, and you would see probably less violence if you were actually taking care of broken families and poverty in the inner cities.
I agree, 100%.
But they don't care. They want the arguments. I think this is the conspiracy side of me. I think they like having those things in their back pocket so they can always feel useful or needed.
Yeah, and maybe they create a hysteria or something around it, and or maybe they're just misinformed and they don't want to be informed otherwise. I don't know.
Well, everybody, every argument or every person, they all need a boogeyman, and right now, firearms is that boogeyman. Yeah,
and it's unfortunate. And this is New York, I believe, is the third state to ban 3D printed guns. One of which is California, and the other one's New Jersey, which won't surprise anybody.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, so that was kind of interesting to hear, but I mean, I'm not sure if you can get a, like a Glock Polymer 80 lower or an AR lower or anything like that still. And, you could get a metal 80% lower for an AR and make your own AR. So,
yeah, I think they're not my preference personally. It doesn't really appeal to me, but
it's the principle of the matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would never discourage somebody from buying one or not being able to have access to them.
Sure.
It's not my thing.
Yeah, but I think you and I probably both, and a lot of other people will probably agree that banning 3D printed guns is not going to help reducing gun crime in New York.
Well, they should just make murder illegal.
I think it is already.
Well, that's weird. Then why isn't it solving it? Should have solved a problem by now. Then.
Well, you said you had one more thing on current events, right?
I have actually two that are kind of tied together as one, so I'll just make it into one.
Love it.
So it's fair time, right? Have you ever gone to any of the state fairs in Idaho?
No, I've been to Illinois State Fair and county fairs here. I believe the Western Idaho Fair.
Yeah, so you know what it's like. You see the craziness and all the weirdos come out to go to the fair.
There's a lot of the people watching is fantastic.
Corn dogs and funnel cakes. I mean, it just goes crazy, right?
It's a great time.
Well, and I'm sure some of our listeners have probably seen this video. If not, I would highly encourage you to check it out. So the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, which we, definitely encourage membership to.
Very much so.
Greg Pruitt, the president, went to the Canyon County Fair. So this would be in Western Idaho.
This is not too far from Boise.
Not too far at all. And he's in the video, he goes to go into the fair open carry. Now he says in the video later on.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He says in the video he's super uncomfortable walking around with an open carry gun in the fair where anybody could have access to it. But that's not the principle.
Right, especially because it's crowded.
But that's not the principle of what he did. So he had a lot of members of the organization complaining that they were being told they could not open carry in the fairgrounds, which violates. We talked about the preemption clause. Maybe we did that off the air. It violates Idaho state law. Okay, so he wanted to just double check. He wanted to give fair game to it. So as he's walking into the fairgrounds, paying his tickets, goes up to the gate, and this lady's like, "Sir, you have to take your firearm. You can't come in." And he's like, "Well, you know what? You're violating state law. Now this is not Caldwell Police Department, Canyon County Sheriff's Office. This is a private security company that the fair hired. No authority, right? Zero.
Because the county fair is, I believe, public land, right? Or public property.
It is on public property in the state of Idaho. All the fairgrounds are either county or city property, and counties and cities cannot supersede state law.
Right. That's what the preemption thing is that, if there's, in some states there are preemption clauses, but if, there is no preemption clause, you as a town or a municipality cannot make your own laws and supersede, your county or state or whatever.
Right. And Greg Pruitt, he knows his firearm laws back to front. He understands it. And so he didn't go in there belligerent.
A little bit.
He didn't go in there belligerent trying to prove a point. He was super calm, used it as a teaching moment. But he actually encountered. God, I cannot talk tonight. Encountered the first security guard. He's like, "Hey, man, I just want to talk to you real quick." And the guy wouldn't even communicate. He's like, "You got to talk to the fair officials. I'm not dealing with," because he had a video camera, obviously.
Oh, jeez.
And I think the guy just didn't want to go on record, right? He didn't want to have to deal with it. So then they go to the gate. Because he wanted to go in to talk to the fair officials. They paid for their ticket, so it's not like they were trying to make a stink and prove some silly point.
Sure.
And that's when the security lady at the gate's like, you have to take your gun off, you're not coming in. He's like, "Actually, I can come in. I talked to the security guard. I'm going in to talk to the fair official. You guys are violating state law."
Yeah.
"Nope, you can't come in." And it goes back and forth for a minute. One of the security ladies, it's pretty funny actually. She gets on her cell phone, calls the fair official, and then you can see her whole cadence or countenance just change, shit type of thing. And then she's like, "Yeah, you guys can go in." And so he goes straight into the fair office, talks to the head of the fair, and the lady's like, "Yeah,
really,
you are totally allowed to open carry in the fair. We've told security that." Yeah, and so there's some kind of disconnect between the private security that was hired by the fair and fair rules that's being muddied. And so I just wanted to bring that up to let you guys know that if you're going to an Idaho State Fair, I do not know what other states, that's not what we're talking about, but in the state of Idaho, fairgrounds are owned by the counties or the cities that it's being housed in. You are allowed to carry. And if they want to call the cops on you, and I'm not saying make a stink and prove a point.
Sure.
Concealed carry is concealed carry. But, and honestly, I would still conceal carry in any of those places. I just don't trust people, but, they can't tell you to leave because they're putting you at risk. Are they going to accept the liability of that risk? No.
Yeah, if somebody does bring a gun in and they want to do some harm, or honestly, any other, weapon or anything, any kind of ill will that they want to do, you know what I mean? And
what a perfect place to do it in a fairground. Not that I'm encouraging anybody to do that, but it is a target.
No, but you're being realistic.
It's a target-rich environment, and that's why I would never go in a place like that without something.
Right, and so it's funny because this story actually got news coverage. It's on the Idaho Statesman. So if you go to idahostatesman.com or you just Google Canyon County Fair guns, you'll pull it right up. And
not only that, but the first place I saw it was not. And I I spent some time on the internet and YouTube and stuff, but the first place I sait was through Iraq Vet 8888, which is a national, a YouTube channel. They do a ton of gun stuff. Yeah. And so I thought it kind of interesting. And here's the thing that you need to realize, and they're going to try and strong arm you if you so choose to open carry, is they'll point to their sign out front that says something, and the verbiage would be something like "No firearms or weapons allowed, other authorized by state law," or something to the similar fact as that. So the reason why it's worded that way is to discourage people from carrying. But what does state law say? I can open carry. So you don't be discouraged by some, some rent-a-cop
right, or some sign that's ambiguously worded. So, and now it's been proven. I mean, it's a good watch of the video yourself. I haven't seen the video, but reading the article and from what you've said, it sounds like a pretty good watch of the video. And it's a good way, I would imagine, to a good example of how to interact with people in a professional, calm manner, and also protect your rights at the same time.
And Greg is totally cool. Like, he's not a dick. Not just in this,
right, exactly.
Not just in this video, but any of the exchanges he has with elected officials. He keeps his calm. He understands how to win an argument, and it's a good video. It could take, he's got a 20-something minute on his YouTube channel. Just check it out.
Yeah, and we'll see if we can post that to our social media as well. So,
and then what kind of tied along with it, and I'm going to have to pull it up. I think it was a Canyon County deputy. I better before I misquote anything. No, Twin Falls County deputy. Basically, he was quoted saying is, "Leave your weapons at home. We'll take care of you."
Really?
That was the gist of his comment. Now, the sheriff came out and said, "Hey, that's not the context. We're Second Amendment supporters."
Interesting.
But when I first read that quote, "Leave your weapons at home. We'll take care of you." The government can't even take care of itself. I respect, deputies and police officers that risk their life. I don't mean any disrespect, but I don't trust. My safety and my family's safety is up to me, not up to the police. That's not what they're hired to do.
Yeah, it's your responsibility and your right to do so. So it's kind of interesting. That's kind of scary, actually.
Yeah, Twin Falls County came out with a letter saying, "Hey, that's not what he meant in the context. You have the right to carry your firearm. We're Second Amendment support." That was the gist of the letter, and you can actually find it if you spend some time online. But I just kind of thought it was interesting. It was just another one of those blood boiling things when I first read it.
Yeah, man, that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Oh, yikes. Well, and see, even in a gun-friendly state like Idaho, you're going to get other people that don't agree, or that people who are in power who are going to say things like that, and makes you think about your, defending your rights, and nobody's going to do that for you. So,
yeah, you can't be complacent. Idaho is changing quickly. The amount of people we're getting from out of state, it is changing very quickly. So stay involved. And I know some people hate talk radio. They can't handle it, but I do get a lot of information from talk radio. And then what it does is I don't necessarily take what they say as gospel, but I'll jump online and I'll do some research and then develop my own opinion on the situation. And I would highly encourage people to do that.
Oh, yeah, I would too. I mean, you want to, and that's with any news source or any information, you want to take what you hear and verify it and do your own research. That's going to...
Well, it strengthens your argument and it opens your eyes to something that could be going on. So don't take my word for it. Watch, but isn't that Reading Rainbow? Don't take my word for it. But
check it out yourself.
Spend some time, jump on the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance page, jump on their YouTube channel, and you can see all that stuff. Facebook, it's all over the place.
And check out the Gun Owners of America Firearms Policy Coalition. Support what you can, how you can, because it's not going to protect itself.
No. And it's a dying beast.
Yeah.
I'm afraid.
So, well, we'll close on that for now, I think. hopefully we've given you some food for thought. And if you have any feedback or anything, let us know. podcast@iishooting.com, or send us a message or anything on Facebook and Instagram at Range Minded Podcast, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, it'll be awesome.
Cool. Well, yeah, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, guys. Be safe.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Range Minded. Find us online at Range Minded Podcast on Facebook, or send us an email at podcast@iishooting.com. We're always happy to get feedback, episode suggestions, whatever you want to send us, really. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.